Hi, my name is Candice Garcia. We are here today to meet on JG. Before we begin, I'm going to make some introductions to everybody on the team. So like I said, I'm Candice Garcia. I am the special education teacher for grades K through 2. Next, we have Miss Amy Rather, who is our school principal. We have Miss Wendy Avers, who is our school psychologist. We also have Miss Rebecca Kabisky, who is our speech language pathologist. And we have his general education teacher, Miss Danielle Bruce. And so, like I said, we are here to go over JG's IEP for the year. So we're going to look at specific data and assessments that were done here recently within the last 2 months and look over that so that we can make some goals so that he can continue to progress through school and we can meet his needs. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can follow along. It's going to help keep me on track and also give you kind of some ideas as to what we're talking about. If you ever have any questions or concerns, just let me know and I'd be happy to stop and go through that. Okay. So you can see my screen. Like I said, we conducted several assessments before we begin. I just want to make sure this is all correct. That JG is currently 7 and in second grade in USD 475. He has been identified as having autism spectrum disorder with communicative disabilities. He is the middle child in a family of 5. He has an older brother who does not have any identified disabilities and a younger sister who also has autism spectrum disorder. He does require one-to-one care throughout the school year in all school settings except for recess. And that he is currently performing two grade levels below his current grade level. So that means that he is performing in the early kindergarten category of academic schoolwork. He does have assistance throughout the day due to his communication disability. He is able to communicate, but it is a challenge for him, and he is more likely to communicate with an adult. And that adult is also there to help him perform or identify the first step of tasks. Is that correct? Okay, great. Thank you. And so some assessments. We conducted a variety of assessments on him. We did 3 informal assessments. We did a norm referenced assessment, and then we conducted a series of CBM or curriculum-based measures on JG. And we did these in the academic subjects areas of ELA or English language arts as well as math. And so I'm going to go over what those were. So the first set of assessments that we conducted were informal assessments. These are done in class. They were done with me, and we just went over this information. It was very just him and I, and him showing me what he knew through these. And so the 3 that we did were phoneme blending, vowel identification, and reading short vowel consonant blends words. We did these because it's important to be able to blend words together in order to hear the sounds and be able to make a word out of them. And so even if we can say the sounds, if we can't put them together to make a word, it can be make reading challenging. We also did vowel identification because vowels are essential in the ability to read words. And then we also did some reading on those short vowel consonant blend words. And so I'm going to go over those a little bit more with you. So for the phoneme blending, I presented him with 5 CVC words, which is consonant, vowel, consonant, and 7 consonant blend words. These all had that short vowel sound. So the sound that we typically associate with those vowels, like A says ah, I says I, those words. And so what happens is I present him with the sounds. So if I said, what word did I just say? If I said t, a, he would have to take those sounds, kind of retain them and push them together to be able to tell me that the word was tap. And so in these words, we presented 12 of them. 5 of them were those CVC vowel consonant or consonant vowel consonant, and he got 5 out of 5 incorrect. And then when we got he in these words, he was more likely to transform it into a word that he was aware of, whether it be a rhyme or something that was close. So, for example, in the word it, he took that word and he said tit. And so he found a rhyme that went with it. Whereas they had that similar ending. We also did 7 consonant blends. And for these, he was less likely to create a word, but instead repeat the final sound. And so you can see over here in this graph that in 59% of the words he said the last sound of the word. In 25% he said a whole sound, a whole word. It was not the actual word, but he said a whole word. In 8% of the words he said the first sound, and in another 8% there was no reason that I could identify for what he said. Some good things that we noted is that when we sped up the blending, he was more likely to get the word correct. So like again, if I said tap, if I went, what word says t, app, and I sped it up, he was more likely to be able to get that word. Okay, the next informal assessment that we did was vowel identification. In this, I gave him, sorry, I gave him words that had 1 or 2 syllables in them. And those included words like kitten, traffic, fast, napkin, and exit. And he was asked to circle or underline what he thought the vowel was. Again, we did this because vowels are essential for reading. And so in this, he was not able to identify any vowels in the words. And so and so you can see in our graph, he did not identify any vowels in these words. One of the words, he underlined the first letter, and in 2 of the words, he did the second letter, and then in 2 of the words, he did the third letter. There was no identifiable order. It was like he would just go first, second, or third, and often it was not a vowel in any of those. When presented with just a list of letters containing 4 consonants and 1 vowel, he was able to identify the name and the sound of the vowel O. And so without a word and just in isolation, he was able to identify O, and it says ah. And the last informal assessment that we did was reading words. I gave him 10 words to read. 1 was a VC vowel consonant, 7 were CVC consonant vowel consonant, and 2 were consonant consonant vowel consonant. Those are like those blends. He identified 1 CVC word and was able to read it. That word was tap. And then after that initial success, he was unable to read those words. He was instead more likely to guess a letter. And so like he may see the word cat and he was like, oh, it's a C. And then he kind of kept that pattern where he was just guessing a letter instead of guessing the word. And so those are his informal assessments. The next assessment that we did was it was a norm referenced assessment. We conducted 2 of them. We switched from ELA reading based to math. And so the 2 that we did were the FastBridge CBM Math Automaticity and the A math assessment. And these compare JG's performance to those of his peers that are in his same grade, age. They compared them nationally to those of his peers. And so the first one that we had him do was the CBM math automaticity. Automaticity meaning like automatic. And so for this, he had 4 minutes to complete as many timed addition and subtraction problems as possible. We cannot give him any assistance on these. And so this was all done independently. So you can see that in these, the addition and subtraction problems are between 0 and 100. And so he did not have to go above 100, but you can see down here that he attempted to solve 21 problems. And so of those 21, he got 0 correct. He attempted 21, he got 0 correct out of those. And so he's willing to try, which is fantastic. You can see that of those numbers, 78% of them, he transposed the numbers. And so, for example, if the problem was 13 plus 24, he would write 4, 2, 3, 1. So he took the numbers from the problem, flipped them around, and then rewrote them into the answer. If he did not do that, he had 15% which was I think 4 problems, where he just wrote the third number in the problem. So for that example, 13 plus 24, he would have just written the number 2 on that problem. It just was a consistent, I'm just going to pick the third number. And then in one of them, in one problem, 7%, he just rewrote the problem in the order that the numbers were presented. So again, in that 13 plus 24, he would have wrote 1, 3, 2, 4. The next assessment that we did, I'm going to go back really quick. So this put him in the first percentile nationally. So that means that like if 100 kids took this test, he pretty much 100 did better than him in this. And so the next norm referenced assessment that we did was our FastBridge A math. And so this test assesses 11 mathematics subgroups. And it really adapts and tries to figure out where and what they know. You can see up here that he scored 177, which places him in the high risk category, and that he is again in that first percentile nationally for students who are in second grade. So the tests that are measured in this are numbers and operations, statistics and probability, geometry, number systems, ratios, proportional relationships, functions, expressions and equations, measurement and data, counting and cardinality, operations and algebraic thinking, and numbers and operations in base 10. And so the thing that we noted on this assessment was that he is in that high risk category, but he did not, he has shown no mastery or even development in any of those subgroups. And so we expect some development or mastery in those subgroups. And so he's still working on learning even to count and identifying numbers. Okay, and then the last set of assessments that we provided were curriculum-based assessments. And so these were done in math, and these were a math type sprint. So these were done twice a week, typically on Tuesdays and Thursdays, between the dates of September 10th and October 3rd. And so the way that these works is that he had 1 minute to solve as many addition or subtraction problems as possible. There was up to 30. And so in these problems, there's typically a pattern present to help him and students build upon their knowledge of numbers and find that pattern, excuse me, so that they are ready they can build upon that fluency and increase their speed. Because if they see the patterns, then it's going to make solving problems more simple. It gets more fluid, they become easier. And so when things are easier, it just makes them be able to go through things. And so we wanted to see if he could identify a pattern and apply it to those things. And so you can see the dates we gave them on September 10th, September 12th, and September 17th. He attempted 0 and got 0 correct on the 10th. He attempted 1 on the 12th and got 0 correct. And then he attempted 1 on the 17th and got 0 correct. And then you see our graph kind of go up. So he attempted 4 and got 4 correct on the 19th. He attempted 7 and got 7 correct on the 24th. And he attempted 8 and got 8 correct on the 26th. And then on October 1st, he attempted 11 with 10 correct. And so I'm going to show you kind of how that happened. And so you can see on our next graph that in this, we see the 0 that we were able to get correct. Once we noticed that he was having difficulty completing these, I applied some accommodations and modifications for him. And so the numbers here, he was doing 2-digit by 1-digit numbers. He was not able to do that because he doesn't have mastery of those numbers. So we provided him those math sprints, but we dropped him down into a grade 1 math sprint. And so instead of doing second grade, he's now doing first grade. And this changed because instead of doing 2-digit by 1-digit numbers, like for example, 17 plus 9, he's now doing 1-digit by 1-digit. So what's 5 plus 4? We also noted that he has difficulty finding the first step. And so we allowed support to help him determine the first step. What should we be doing? And we provided him more time to allow those things to happen. And so with those kind of accommodations and modifications, he was able to begin to see success in doing those. And so that's where you see that growth. Our aim line here is what we were hoping to get him at. We were hoping that we could get him up to 15 correct in that time. And as you can see, he's made excellent progress. And I think he'll probably get there in the next week or two with continued practice. And so those are the different sorts of assessments that JG has done. And so with that, we want to look at his strengths and weaknesses so that we can make the best goal for him and make him successful. So some strengths that he has is he is so willing to attempt difficult tasks. It's really easy to expect or want to shut down and not do it. It's too hard. But he is absolutely willing to do those difficult tasks, even if he's not seeing success. He wants to try to do them. He's not deterred by that. He does have knowledge of letter names and sounds. It may not be automatic yet, but he does have knowledge of letter names and sounds, and that is going to help him continue to learn. And then when he doesn't know the answer, he makes a reasonable guess when he's unsure. He doesn't just stop. He doesn't just sit there. He makes a reasonable guess with the information that he has. And so those are all great things that we have working towards him. Some of his weaknesses and things that he struggles with is that he struggles to identify the first step in problems. Okay. He's not sure always where to start. He does not yet have mastery of counting between 1 and 100. And then he cannot identify all the letters when presented in random order. We do have knowledge of them, but we don't have mastery. And so those are some of his strengths and weaknesses. And so with that, I want to present 2 short-term goals. And so we're going to try to reach relatively quick. I'm going to propose that these are goals that we try to meet by December of this year. So this quarter is almost over. So by the end of the semester. So because we have information on both reading and math, I'm proposing a reading and a math goal. So my short-term goal for him by the end of the semester, he will be able to accurately blend phonemes to read 20 CBC words with at least 80% accurately on weekly assessments, supported by targeted small group instruction and phoneme blending activities 3 times a week. So we're going to really try to get him to blend those phonemes and hear the sounds and put them together to form those words. And so I'm going to propose that by December, we get those 20 CBC words, and we're able to do that with 80% accuracy. And then in math, his short-term goal is that by the end of the semester, he will be able to identify numbers between 1 and 20 with use of counters and hundreds chart when presented in random order with 95% accuracy during weekly assessments, supported by daily counting activities and interactive games. And so we really want to build on that knowledge of numbers and counting and start to get him developing and mastering those things by the end of the year. And so I think those are both very attainable goals for him by the end of the semester. And then we're going to push it out a little bit long term. So these are going to be goals that we're going to work on throughout the year. So by the end of the year, our ELA goal is that by the end of the year, he will be able to read 25 CVC words. Those are consonant, vowel, consonant, those cat, hat, those type of words. He's going to be able to read those with at least 90% accuracy during fluency assessments. And we're going to be supported by daily reading practice and targeted phonics instruction. And then our math goal is by the end of the year, he will be able to accurately add and subtract numbers between 1 and 100 with at least 85% proficiency on monthly assessments, supported by weekly math practice sessions and hands-on activities. So we're really going to take what we're building on with those curriculum-based measures and that practice in adding and that practice in counting to try to get him adding between 1 and 100 by the end of the year. And so some ways that you could support him. We don't want support to always seem like a chore, and some really great things that you can do at home is to read together, read to him, let him pick a book that he enjoys and that he would like to read, and then read to him. It's a great bonding experience, and it's a great way to get him exposed to those reading things. Counting, count when you're out and about. If you're walking through a store, count the number of squares on the floor. If you're playing at the park, count how many times he pushes somebody or gets pushed on the swing. Just kind of always exposing him to that counting and that there is some meaning behind those numbers. And then another great activity is you could play games like Uno or Hi-Ho Cheerios. Like Uno, for example, has numbers and colors, and you're going to match, 9 with a 9 and finding the similarities. Or Hi-Ho Cheerio, where you're counting the cherries, are all great ways that you can support him at home. And so, any questions? Okay, so in conclusion, we met about JG today. We established some short-term goals, including phoneme blending, increasing his ability to blend phonemes and count and identify numbers between 100 or 1 and 20, sorry. And then we met on some long-term goals, which include him being able to read 25 CVC words and accurately adding and subtracting between 1 and 100 by the end of the year. And it was great meeting you, and thank you for being here today.